Hello and welcome to another edition of Homegrown Table Talk. I'm Colton Hall. Today we're joined by a bunch of experts in the ag industry, and to start things out with us, we're just going to start with a short introduction. Hunter, we'll start with you.
Hello, my name is Hunter Roberts. I'm the Secretary of Agriculture and Natural Resources for the state of South Dakota, and then also a livestock producer and crop operation, West River, Lyman County, and Stanley County with my folks.
Awesome. Jerry?
Jerry Schmetz, the Executive Director for South Dakota Soybean Checkoff and the South Dakota Soybean Association. I farm with my son near Vermillion, South Dakota.
Awesome.
Marty Overweg, and I am in the House of Representatives, District 19.
We're going to start by talking about obviously just some of the major issues facing producers, and obviously I know inflation is a big part of that, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But Hunter, we can start with you. In your opinion, what are some big things facing and challenges facing producers?
Well, today I think certainly drought is certainly a big issue in our state as we look at kind of where things are at on the drought monitor map. Certainly a lot of our state was encompassed the last couple weeks. Now this last week we've had some rains, which is going to help certain areas, but certainly we're not out of the woods yet. We look at kind of moving into the summer. Forecasts have higher temperatures, warmer and possibly drier for June, July, and August, which is not a good indicator when we come in kind of minus some of our subsoil moisture already. So that's certainly I think a huge thing for our producers, especially West River.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Jay?
I would say the same thing as the Secretary. Drought is something that's on everyone's mind. There are a few areas, however, that had extreme moisture last fall and have been getting some this spring. So those folks are having a little bit of a difficulty. But overall, the rains that came through this past week are helping everybody out, giving us a good kick for the spring.
Absolutely, that's definitely a big thing heading into the summer, absolutely. Marty, is there anything when it comes to the ag industry?
Well, the big thing I think is the cattle producer. How we're going to figure out how to have them make a living in the future is something that, I don't know if we have the answer for it, but we got to give them some help. We have far too much Washington and far too much corporate dealing with, telling us what to do, and it's just not working. So hopefully we can get something figured out there.
I know one of the specific issues was when we talk about livestock identification. You had a bill, House Bill 1096, that passed its way through the legislature. Can we just kind of start by shedding a little bit of light on that? Because I know it does address a kind of a key issue facing producers as well.
Well, right now there's a law and statute that says you have 6 different ways to identify your livestock. And it's been tried before. I think it was 2013 they tried to go back to mandatory electronic ID tags. This would just say to the federal government, you can't come in here and tell a producer how to ID their livestock. Now if we're the only state, us and Wyoming, that have it, we probably don't have a lot of teeth. But hopefully, future plans is to get more states around us to also pass it, and then hopefully that puts some teeth into it.
Obviously, another big issue kind of coming forward right now is inflation. I think just this last month, according to multiple sources, 8.5% for inflation, the highest it's been in decades. Jerry, if we could kind of talk about, inflation, how that affects cost associated to operating, and as also, are there resources for assistance?
Inflation is really impacting farms for this reason. Because of technology and the cost of technologies, whether that is in the equipment or whether that's in the seed or fertilizer, they have skyrocketed. In some instances, 3 times what they were a year ago. And so it's a factor. There is assistance out there if it's needed. The banks are really making sure that they're available. But for the time being, farmers came out of the past few years looking pretty good, and so the real catch will be, how does it impact next year?
Mm-hmm. Mr. Roberts?
Well, I certainly agree with Jerry. Certainly the costs are impacting our producers. You look at inflation in the pesticides, just supply chain issues. Even getting those pesticides is a big issue for some of our producers. Look at diesel costs being twice what they were last year. Certainly it's a huge impact. Fertilizer costs way more than twice what it was last year. All those impacts certainly are going to be hard on our producers. Commodity prices are up, which is great, but the more capital outlay you put out there, the more risk you have. So certainly it's a volatile world we're living in, and certainly our producers are right in there seeing that brunt of it too, like everyone else is when they go to the grocery store.
Mr. Overweg, I know during the legislature there was obviously bills for kind of alleviating some of the taxes, or at least for certain points in time. Was there any talks, just kind of, obviously inflation had to be a big discussion or part of the discussion in Pierre?
Oh yeah, you know, we tried to, first off, take the half-cent off the sales tax, and then when that didn't go, we tried to eliminate all of the tax on food. And then I think even on the end there was a gas tax holiday, I think they called it. Yeah, all of them failed, but just understanding, I think the legislature really had at least the House did, had a good understanding this year that tough times for people, whether you're on the farm, you know, agriculture affects everybody in this state.
Now, about resources, is there anything that you guys have kind of noticed that could kind of alleviate some of this inflation concern, or at least in the short term or long term? Is there anything that you guys are seeing that could help with that?
Boy, I mean, it's a lot bigger issue than what we do in South Dakota, that's for sure. You know, certainly there's been a lot of federal dollars moved through all the states and everyone that's tied to government, and that's, I think, eviscerated it. I don't think there is an easy answer. Certainly, I think, you know, South Dakota's perspective, where I think we've taken a longer term vision, investing in infrastructure is a good way to alleviate those future costs, but, you know, we're a small economy when we're compared to the world. So it's pretty limited on the state side what we can do. Certainly what Representative Overweg said about saving money for our taxpayers, that's a good way. Less government spending definitely helps.
All right, well, we'll be back with Hunter, Jerry, and Marty Overweg, Representative Overweg, in just a moment. Welcome back to Homegrown Table Talk. Once again, I'm Colton Hall. We're going to continue here with Hunter, Jerry, and Representative Overweg talking about the current political climate and how that can affect the industry, whether that's imports or exports. You know, obviously there is a huge problem, you know, when talking with congressional legislators talking about the issues that we're having on the docks in America right now. How much does that kind of play into the agriculture industry?
Well, I think certainly anytime you can't ship your goods or receive your goods, it causes huge backlogs and pain for our producers, and certainly it's not okay if we can't ship our grains to the people that need it, or our other commodities for that matter. I mean, certainly it's a big issue. I think, Jerry, I would definitely like to hear kind of his insight into the trade side of things.
The supply chain is huge. As Hunter mentioned, farmers need to get the inputs for planting, for livestock, but we also need to be able to move our product. And I'll be the first to say we would love to develop more of our products and refine them more here in South Dakota. But for the time being, we are shipping a tremendous amount overseas. For soybeans, at least 60 to 70% of our soybeans leave the state. And so we need to be able to move those products rapidly. South Dakota is on the western edge of the growing belt. And so we can go to the Pacific Northwest, but the ships have to be there, and they have to take the product away, and they have to be able to return quickly. And there's where some of the problems with the shipping is taking place. And so soybeans is a $2 to $3 billion industry in South Dakota. The more we can do to keep that supply chain moving back and forth, the better we will all be. The U.S. is a food supplier of the world, and there's a benefit in that when those folks purchase our products, we can share back and forth. And I guess I would like to say we need to look at personalities when we do that. The folks that are buying our products seriously want to work back and forth. They aren't the governments in those countries, whether it be China, whether it be Russia. It's people that need food. And we want to work on a level where we are eye to eye, supplying the things that they need, and they can supply some things for us as well.
I think, right now we have, Jerry, you can help me out with the numbers, but it's around, each farmer in America feeds about 160 some people, right? And I think by 2030, they're expecting that to have to be over 200. So your ag producers want to do their job. The people that are hungry, well, they want their food. The problem comes, I think, in the middle, like you said, we're over 60% of our beans, we're not stepping on at all. We're shipping them right out. And they're landing in docks that are not owned by Americans, foreign dock owned. And on my side, from the livestock nutrition side, there's hardly a company in America that's making vitamins anymore. We're shipping them all in from China. And that makes it really tough because our supply goes out, but we can't get in. So because we can't get it in, it's driving up our input cost, and then are we getting paid on the out? So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
I feel like a big thing that plays into that is being able to get in contact with politicians, with legislators, to be able to kind of voice some of their concerns. But how can ag producers better reach out to politicians and really just be able to be heard to help them understand their needs?
It's tough to say we need to do better when we have someone like Hunter working in Pierre, Governor Noem. Together, the department and the administration has been doing everything that they can to develop agriculture. And I'll say a big thank you for all that you do.
Thanks, Jerry. Well, certainly, I certainly appreciate that. We definitely want to continue to work on production side of things. I think you made a great point, Representative Overweg, that improving our production capabilities in South Dakota, then a lot of times we're able to utilize that feed right here in South Dakota, that byproduct, and then ship those finished goods to better places. Like I'd say, get another bite out of that apple before we send it down the line. I think certainly that's been Governor Noem and Lieutenant Governor Roden's priority, and our Governor's Office Economic Development priority too. South Dakota is unique, how we have the highest GDP percentage of ag tied to our GDP than any other state. So it's a unique state that we have that, and I think politically we have a lot of support in Pierre. Certainly we're getting more urban, but politically we have a lot of support in Pierre for our producers. We need to continue that by continuing to feed the world and do a great job that our industry is already doing.
South Dakota agriculture is a $32 billion industry, but that's just the raw product. As the Secretary mentioned, we need to be developing those things. And I know Representative Overweg agrees and has been doing things to assist with that.
Well, yeah, every time we can step on something here, one more time, it's just value added. And it's the only way it can happen. We have to trust our own people, our own state. The Soybean Association, I raise soybeans. I'm just grateful for everything they do, to test these markets and try to find them. It takes a lot of work, don't it, Jerry?
It certainly does. South Dakota, I think, has the greatest potential of any state for growth in agriculture. The two things that we need to be working on, and I think the legislature and Department of Ag is, number one, water. It's huge for South Dakota if we're going to grow, and we do have that potential to grow. The second thing is labor. We have to encourage folks in, and they're good neighbors. There are people out there who want to work, and we would love to have them helping us.
Real quick, Mr. Overweg, can we just quick talk about the idea of how important it is to get that feedback from producers?
Well, it's very important, and I think in South Dakota it's got to be one of the easiest states to reach your legislature. Write me an email, I'll answer it, especially if you're in my district. Get hold of your district person first. Come to anybody in the legislature will talk to you. If they don't, let me know, I'll get on them. But it's easily reached, because that's what we are. We're basically a citizen. We're not professional politicians. We're citizens that are there to win. We're there to serve our neighbors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll be back with more Homegrown Table Talk in just a moment. Welcome back to Homegrown Table Talk. We're going to finish things up by talking about the innovations in the ag industry that is helping to overcome past and also future challenges. Jerry, I know the soybean industry has something that is kind of helping in this endeavor.
You know what? Technology today is growing so rapidly. We're learning that we don't know what we don't know. My grandfather started with horses, and precision agriculture then was getting the harnesses on properly. Today, my son goes out to the field, and when he does, he's already written a prescription that goes into the computers on the planter, and it tells him which field he's going to go to, what the seed is going to be, how far apart that seed will be. It will change it on the go. We are utilizing every square inch of the soil to its greatest potential without harming it. And that's probably key. In the past, we all have heard about dust blowing from plowing, and today farmers use as little tillage as possible. Technology is such that farmers had GPS probably 15 to 20 years before people even heard about it in their cars. And that is our future, technology, whether that's seed, whether that's equipment. That is our growth area. That is how we feed the world more efficiently, produce a product that will cost less, and be able to grow more of it.
That last point you just made, talking about growing more of it, when we talk about the industry and how important that it is to kind of continue growth, continue moving forward with technology, where do you see it going from here?
It's really hard to tell where it's headed. Today we have the technology, whether it's a plant or an animal, to follow it from conception to consumption. And so how much data do you want to collect? How much data can you deal with? What does the consumer want to know when they get to the grocery store? That can be all beyond the tag when the consumer picks it up and where it came from. And so all of those things are extremely important. We're just working on it every day, and I think Hunter can talk a little bit, and Representative Overweg, about what the legislature's done to help assist those types of things.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Overweg?
Well, technology is great, and if we could let our industry just loose, we'd be even further ahead. But you also have to have a way that people have to afford it. We have to figure out a way to pay for it. The consumer. I love the part of knowing from, like on your beef, I personally am for IMCO. I think it's a very important thing. Other people probably not so much, but that's just part of the way that we try to put laws in, that people do know where their meat, their pork, where their soybeans is in everything, right, Jerry?
It is.
I mean, to know where it is. But the important thing is to have the producers know that South Dakota producers, I should have say the consumers know that South Dakota producers care about the product they're putting out. I think we're putting out the greatest product in the world, and I'll dare say it to anybody out of South Dakota. It's safe, it's good, it's done right, and technology has helped us, but we just got to figure out a way to get paid for it a little bit more, and we'll be off and running.
Mr. Roberts, kind of on the technology side of things, any plans and anything that the state is doing to kind of move forward with that as well?
Well, that's a good question. Certainly our commodity groups have stepped up too in investing in technology and how you roll that technology out. The legislature, with the support of the governor and our commodity groups, have funded the Raven Precision Ag Center, a bioprocessing center, and now they're looking at, or partially funded, some technology West River too. I can't remember the Cottonwood Station.
Cottonwood, yeah.
Doing some research out there too to update what they have. So certainly there's been some pretty big dollars invested, and part of that's rolling out that existing technology to the next generation through the Raven Precision Ag Center. And then part of it's also learning what's next. I mean, interesting, type of non-fence utilization for beef cattle is something they're working on at the Cottonwood State Research Station, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, I know I don't like to fix fence, so if you didn't have to use those fences, it'd be pretty efficient and hopefully work. So they're doing some cool stuff there.
One of the biggest things, obviously, in agriculture is water. I know through the House, the Senate, and the legislative session, moving forward with a lot of water plans within the state. But specifically, how is the state kind of moving forward to help innovate and grow agriculture in South Dakota?
Well, I think it's a good question. The thought is that we're streamlined. We have a small government. We're not high cost, high tax state. We don't have a bunch of different programs, fancy programs. What we do is we give you 100% income tax rebate from the get-go because we don't have income tax. I think having that small government and a very approachable government, I mean, it's not hard to get a meeting with Representative Overweg. It's not hard to get a meeting with me. It's not hard to get a meeting with Governor Noem and Lieutenant Governor Roden. Having that approachable, reachable governance, I think, is very valuable. With just having a small government in general is a good thing, and it creates that opportunity for innovation and that low overhead cost, so people can make that investment, know what they're getting into, and move forward.
You go to the States, they can't believe that we do a 40-day session or 37 like we did this year. I mean, the work we get done, I'm not trying to brag, I'm just very impressed with the people I work with. And we do, we have low taxes in South Dakota, and I think all of us sitting here would agree that we want to keep low taxes. Taxes is a real burden on people. So yeah, I think we're approachable. I'm kind of repeating what you said, but you answered the question so good.
Well, and we certainly try to be fair on the regulation side.
Yeah,
too. Common sense, we'll work with you to get through. We have rules, we have laws, we have a very clean state, but we're going to enforce what rules we have and be fair with you. So it's a great place to do business. I think Jerry's going to chime in and agree on that too.
It is. Approachable is probably the key word, not only for these folks, but for our national representatives. We can walk in just about any time and meet with them, and that is very unique in the world.
All right, I think that's very important. Thank you guys so much for being part of the panel today. I really appreciate you guys coming out.
Thank you.
That will do it for this episode of Homegrown Table Talk.
Tailor us just as well as any man.